Hello and welcome back. Today we're looking at one button macros in World of Warcraft. I have covered this before years ago, and although not a lot has changed, things do look a bit different now. It is done slightly differently now, but in theory it's all the same as it used to be. It still works. What we're actually going to be doing is allowing you to cycle through the spells of your main rotation by just hitting one button, and to do that we're using an add-on called Gnome Sequencer Enhanced. If you look down in the description for this video, you'll see that everything is time-stamped, which allows you to have chapters on the time bar under the video, and there'll also be links to Gnome Sequencer and also to the Lazy Macros website, which we'll be going to in a little while. What I'm going to start off by doing, I think, is just showing you what I already have on my character, what I'm already using. This is just a macro that I've made myself just for leveling. It's not a raid, rotation or anything like that. It's just a simple macro for leveling out in the world. And the first thing I'm going to do is just put type /GSE, and that brings up the Gnome Sequencer UI, and here you can see I've got two macros. I've named one BM Solo and I've named the other one Stop, and this second one is just for pet control. But if I go into the first one, I'm not sure how many times I have to click it before it lets me tap it. It's a little bit awkward. Okay, so it's let me in. The first thing we see here is your icon, your name, and then these numbers. Your talents are listed here. They correspond to your talents in game. So 1 is Killer Instinct, 2 would be one with the pack, 1 then again Trailblazer. I think you get the idea. These aren't always absolutely necessary. Some of these are flavor abilities, but when you go on Lazy Macros later, you'll find out that actually some of these can be quite important for the macro to work when you're using someone else's macro that they've shared. Next on here, you'll see that this number here, 1 and 2, these are different macros that correspond, which can be applied to different situations. So here we've got number 2 for arena, which means that when you are in arena, it will default to using the second page of these macros and it won't use the first page. And then when we're out in the world raid, we've got 1 mythic +1. So you can add several of these for different situations, so they're all on the same macro, so you don't have to swap buttons on your action bars or anything like that. You can just keep that same button on your action bar and it will change depending on where you are. Let's go in and have a look at our main sequence. I won't go too much in depth to this because I do actually already have a guide which I will link, which actually tells you how to write these macros, but I'm just going to skim over what I've got here and explain what each bit of it is, and hopefully that'll help you. You have a few options here: sequential, random, and priority list. With a priority list, you can see the number sequence written here. It will always try and do the first item on the sequence first, and then it will try and do the first item on the sequence again before moving on to the next one. So it always resets to the top every time you press a button. Whereas sequential will go through them one at a time as they feature on the sequence list. And then random, yeah, there it is, it's random. There used to be an actual cast random macro in game which you could use, but I don't advise on this. I don't even think that Frost DK would benefit from this anymore. You could maybe use it with BM Hunter possibly, but you know, I'd rather write my own. So sequential. Then we go into key press, and this is like what happens when the key is first put down but not released. So you've pressed the button, you're holding it down, and it'll do, and this is full of things that have no global cooldown. So the first line here, target enemy, no harm, dead. That's going to target an enemy that isn't a friendly character, so no harm means it's not a yellow name tag, and then dead means you're not targeting things that are already dead. Then we've got start attack, which obviously will start me using my auto attack with my bow. Then we've got the same for my pet. This will make sure that I'm in combat before doing it, otherwise this macro might just start sending your pet out randomly which you don't want. Then we've got pet abilities. I've got more here than my pet has. I'm just trying to cover all bases by having these, so if I do change pet, the macro still works, and we'll use some of these extra pet abilities. And then we've got cast no pet dead. This will actually bring your pet into battle if you don't have a pet actually called at that time. And then the next line is if your pet has died, you'll then cast mend pet to try and revive your pet. Either way, that'll actually mend pet as well, but if your pet is dead, that will try and revive it. This can be a bit buggy. If your pet dies several times, sometimes you will have to manually revive your pet, so have that on your action bar. Then we have some extra, like if you've got a spirit beast, you can use spirit mend. And then we move on to your targeting for misdirection. This is purely for misdirection. If you have set a target to focus, that's that little extra bit here, target focus, you can misdirect to your focus, which is really handy. So if you set your tank, for instance, in a dungeon to focus, this macro will take care of misdirect for you, putting your aggro onto the tank. Then we have the pre-macro box. Once again, this is stuff that it will always try and cast before the sequence, but not on key press sort of thing. It's a bit of an awkward box to explain, but this is once again things that don't have a global cooldown. And then there's key release as well, and you'll see that some of these things, and there's post macro as well, you'll see that some of these things are duplicated, because you'll find that sometimes if you're smashing that key, you will miss things. Like the Gnome Sequencer will miss things, so a bit of duplication helps to focus and actually grab hold of those things that you might miss. So barbed shot, for example, you'll see it all the time because we really want barbed shot to go off, so barbed shot happens often. And also in this sequence here, you'll see that it's just cobra shot over and over and over and over again, and that's all it is. So our first cast in the actuals, this is the main sequence here, is cast barbed shot, cast kill command, and then cast cobra shot, and that is our main rotation on BM. All the rest of them are just global cooldown on use things, not global cooldown, but things that are on a cooldown, and we just use them as they come up. If there's anything that you don't want in here, you can use modifiers, and all that means is while you're spamming your action key, you can hold down shift or alt or control, and instead of casting what you would normally cast, it will instead cast what you want it to cast using your modifier. So I've got no modifier here, cast cobra shot, but if I hold down shift, instead of cobra shot, it will fire multi-shot. And that's all there is to it. I mean, I'm using Beastmaster here because it is the most basic and easy example for Gnome Sequencer, but all classes and specs pretty much have some viable use using Gnome Sequencer, even tanks. Healers not so much because it's such a specific targeting situation, you want to heal the correct people in the correct places and that sort of thing. So healers are probably the only people that might not use Gnome Sequencer, but everyone else can use Gnome Sequencer to some degree. More complicated specs that require you to spin plates like Rogue, Feral, most Warlock specs, where you have to time your spells correctly based on the cooldowns and remaining cooldowns, this probably isn't going to work very well. It'll still work, but you're not going to see anywhere near the numbers you should. Whereas simpler specs like Frost Death Knight or Hunter, my dog's having a little moan in the background, sorry. They have such simple rotations that sometimes you can do a bit better than you would just using the spells yourself. So swings and roundabouts. But down here as well, also you can check boxes down here that allow you to add in your trinkets, rings and belts which have on-use effects. Just checking the box will add these into the rotation regardless. You don't have to actually do anything else. You just tell this, yeah, please include these things, and it will do that for you. And saving it saves it. Right, sorry, I had to cut away there, but I'm back. Once you've created your icon, you can then drag it onto your action bar, and now when I press F7 it will perform this one button macro. I've done the same with my stop macro and put it on F8. Those are also bound onto my mouse on my thumb buttons, and when I press the key, this is me pressing it manual, as I spam through it, it will cast my moves. As you see, I've got all sorts of stuff going on there now. You can look in the combat log at all the things that are happening. You are more than welcome to do this manually, but if you have software for your mouse with auto fire, you can attach it to it on auto fire. Or if you have a program called Auto Hotkey, I'm not going to put links to that in the description. I don't like using it, but that is another option. Do your research. But most mouse manufacturers, Corsair, SteelSeries, even Rocat now have auto fire functionality. So you could bind your F7 and F8 keys to your mouse buttons and put them on there. Don't bind it to F4 though, because if you press Alt F4 you are going to quit the game. So yeah, anything is viable, but keep them out of the way. Or just spam the button like I am right now and it's fine. As you can see, I'm going through, I'm doing all my rotation, but if you are using auto fire like I am now using, I now am free to move my character around and change my focus from my rotation onto what's actually going on in the game. And this is the reason why I use Gnome Sequencer Enhanced and why I use one button macros. I had an incident years back, skiing incident, where I hurt myself quite badly, and ever since I've not been able to focus on multiple things very well. I have to tunnel vision, so this allows me to actually tunnel vision on movement of my character, not standing in the fire, looking at positioning, looking at what's going on around me, and still do my rotation of spells. This isn't a bot, I'm not cheating. It's questionable as to whether it's against terms and conditions if you're using software to press the button for you, like the auto fire. That's questionable. It's an awkward one. However, if you're spamming that button manually, absolutely not. Gnome Sequencer is absolutely fine. But for people with disabilities, like if I had no left hand or I was missing fingers, something like that, this allows me to put everything on my mouse. I could have my character controls on my mouse and I could be doing everything with my right hand, which is fantastic. So this really is sort of an accessibility function for the game, and I know for a fact that it's helped a lot of people. I know from my previous videos that it's helped a lot of people play this game where otherwise they wouldn't be able to anymore, which is really sad. I mean, we all love Warcraft a lot, even though we've survived through BFA. We still love Warcraft, and we're all looking forward to Shadowlands right now. As I'm recording this, Shadowlands is tomorrow, so I'm very excited. I've had a big break from World of Warcraft during BFA, but now Shadowlands is coming and I want to play again, and we're all getting very excited. All my friends are back on, it's going to be a great time, and this is going to help me play that content to actually get engaged and actually enjoy all of the content. You can use this in dungeons, raids. You're going to have to be very friendly with your raid group, because there's a good chance that your damage isn't going to be as good as it should be, if you are manually controlling your spell rotation. But if you're doing raids with friends, they're going to let you do this. Dare I say it, LFR? Yeah, if you're doing LFR, I'm not going to do LFR, but I don't want to spoil the raid for myself. LFR just spoils the raid. So yeah, I hope this helps you. I really do. What I'll go and do now is I'm going to go to the Lazy Macros website. I'm going to show you community created macros that you can import, and then I'll show you how to import it into game and how to use it. Okay, so here we are on the Lazy Macros website, lazymacros.com, lazymacros.com, and as you can see, all of the classes and specs are separated, and there's also some old patch information if you're playing a previous version of the game for some reason, or if you just wanted to review older builds and that sort of thing. But here we have Beastmaster Hunter that we're using right now, and we can just click on the top one, BM901 single target multiplayer macro with better barb shot uptime. All of these are submitted by players using Gnome Sequencer, and if you want to talk to these people and ask questions, you're absolutely more than welcome to. They're very friendly and helpful, and if you have some good macros you want to share with them, you can do the same here. So make an account on Lazy Macros, and then you can get access to everything. We'll click on this, and then the most important thing, it's gone to the bottom for some reason, gone to the most recent post. The most important thing here is this long, incredibly long string of alphanumerical data, with a very handy copy button. This is what you will be importing into your Gnome Sequencer to transfer the macro in from this website. And below they've got details on what is actually in the macro. As you can see, there are 3 pages of the macro with various things. So let's copy it, copied, then go into World of Warcraft. We've got Gnome Sequencer open, click on the import, and then we're going to click on the box first, so remember to click on the box first, and then Control V, and there you can see that incredibly large string of data, and import, and here it is, LUSTBM. We can now click on that, click on it twice, click edit, and let's have a look at what they've done. So they've got 3 pages. That third page doesn't appear to be, oh, he's got it for questing, so okay. Not entirely sure, but yeah, anyway. There we go, that's his questing build here. Very different from my layout, very different indeed from how I set mine up. He's got sequencing pre-macro as well as down here, but let's give it a go, let's see if it works. So we're going to drag this down onto our button, and then we can close that. Oh, one thing I didn't check, which is always important, always check the talents. 1, 2, and X means whatever you like. So let's have a look. 1, 2, X. He's got Thrill of the Hunt. He's got Post Haste, and then he's got 1, 1. So the only difference here was Murder of Crows and Thrill of the Hunt. So that could have screwed up his macro if I didn't have Thrill of the Hunt. So there we go, and let's start using it. All seems to be working fine. If we check our logs, I shouldn't have my general open there. It's all cycling through fine, so there you go. Don't just use one of these, test multiple macros, see which ones work, and then once you've sort of gotten used to it and you understand it a bit better yourself, make your own macros, tailor them to yourself. I personally like to have Shift, Alt and Control modifiers, so like when I hold Shift I like that to now become an AoE macro, whereas without Shift it's solo. And then things such as interrupts, I like to have those built into the macro if possible sometimes. Or another thing you might use is CC. So interrupts and CCs are something that you might put onto modifiers. But as you can see, this is working perfectly fine. It's a decent macro. We don't know how the numbers compare to other macros, and we don't know how the numbers compare to just manual gameplay. Because it's Shadowlands tomorrow, and we've had the item squish, I honestly have no idea what good numbers are at the moment, but I'm sure I'll know in a few weeks' time. Right, so I hope this video helped you. If it did, please leave me a like, give me a subscribe. I've just hit 1,000 subscribers actually, mainly through a little mobile game I've been playing whilst waiting for Warcraft. But thanks to all those subscribers. There will be more Warcraft content coming out now that we have a decent expansion to play. Fingers crossed, you know, there's still a possibility it could turn out to be rubbish, but I've been keeping tabs, and I'm pretty sure that Shadowlands will keep us entertained for a bit longer than BFA did at the start anyway. So fingers crossed for that, and I'll see you in game.